She stepped into the training yard with a faded t-shirt, a worn backpack, and her hair tied low, looking like a logistics worker who had taken a very wrong turn. The recruits laughed. Someone muttered, "Did the army start taking backstage volunteers now?" But when a male soldier grabbed her collar during a combat drill and tore her shirt down the back, shouting, "Girls like you are only good at hiding," the laughter stopped. Because when her back was exposed, a veteran colonel took one look at the tattoo across her shoulder blade and immediately stood at attention. His hand snapped to his forehead in a sharp, trembling salute. The entire camp froze. This wasn't just any tattoo. It was the covert symbol of Ghost Viper, and no one who truly understood what that meant was laughing anymore. Olivia Mitchell didn't belong there. At least that's what everyone assumed the moment they saw her. She had rolled into the NATO training camp in a beat-up pickup truck, its paint chipped and its tires caked with mud from some forgotten back road. Nobody would have guessed she came from one of the wealthiest families in the country, a world of private tutors, gated estates, and curated silence. But Olivia didn't carry any of that with her. No designer labels, no polished nails, just a plain face, clothes that looked like they'd been washed 100 times too many, and boots so scuffed they told their own story. Her backpack was held together by a single stubborn strap and she wore it like she didn't notice. But it wasn't just her appearance that set her apart. It was her stillness. She stood at the edge of the yard with her hands in her pockets, watching the chaos of the camp like she was waiting for a signal only she could hear. Not anxious, not lost, just waiting. The first day was a gauntlet. Captain Harrow, the head instructor, was a mountain of a man whose voice could stop a riot mid-swing. He paced the yard, sizing up the new cadets one by one, his eyes eventually locking onto Olivia like she was an answer to a question he hadn't asked yet. "You," he barked, pointing a thick finger in her direction. "What's your deal?" "Supply crew got lost," someone behind Olivia muttered. The group snickered. A girl named Tara, sharp blonde ponytail, smile that never reached her eyes, leaned toward the cadet beside her and whispered, "Bet she's here to check a box. Gender quota, right?" Olivia didn't blink. She looked straight at Harrow, her face perfectly calm. "I'm a cadet, sir." Harrow snorted and waved her off. "Get in line then. Don't slow us down." In the mess hall that evening, Olivia carried her tray to a corner table, away from the noise. The room was loud, recruits swapping stories, egos competing for airtime. A guy named Derek, lean and cocky with a fresh buzz cut, spotted her sitting alone and immediately saw an opportunity. He grabbed his tray, strutted over, and dropped it on her table with a deliberate clatter. "Yo, lost girl," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to turn. "This ain't a soup kitchen. You sure you're not here to wash dishes?" The group behind him erupted. Olivia paused with her fork halfway to her mouth, looked at him once and said, "I'm eating." Derek leaned in, smirking. "Yeah, well, eat faster. You're taking up space real soldiers need." Then he flicked her tray, sending a spoonful of mashed potatoes splattering across her shirt. The room howled. Olivia picked up a napkin. Slowly, deliberately, she wiped the mess from her shirt. Her hands didn't shake. Her eyes never left her plate. She took another bite like Derek wasn't even there. The warm-ups were a test of endurance. Push-ups until your arms gave out, sprints that scorched your lungs, burpees in the dirt beneath a ruthless sun. Olivia kept pace, her breathing steady, but her shoelaces kept slipping loose. They were old and frayed, barely holding her boots together. During a sprint, a guy named Lance jogged up beside her. Lance was the group's golden boy. Broad-shouldered, easy grin, the kind of guy who'd never lost at anything and made sure you knew it. "Yo, thrift store," he called out loud enough for the whole line to hear. "Your shoes giving up? Or is that just you?" Laughter rippled down the line. Olivia didn't respond. She knelt, retied her laces with quick, precise fingers, and stood back up. But as she rose, Lance bumped her shoulder, hard. She stumbled, her hands hitting the mud, her knees sinking into the wet earth. The group howled. "What's that, Mitchell?" Lance said, still grinning. "You signing up to clean the floors or just be our punching bag?" Olivia got up, wiped her palms on her pants, and kept running. Not a single word. The laughter followed her all morning, but she never broke pace. During a break, she sat on a wooden bench pulling a granola bar from her bag. Tara appeared with two other cadets, arms crossed, voice dripping with fake concern. "Olivia, right? So where are you even from? Did you win a contest to be here or something?" Her friends giggled. One covered her mouth like it was all too funny. Olivia took a slow bite, chewed, and looked up. I applied. Flat, like she was stating the weather. Tara's smile tightened. "Okay, but why?" she pressed, leaning in. You don't exactly scream elite soldier. I mean, look at your everything. She waved a hand at Olivia's muddy shirt and plain brown hair. Olivia set down her granola bar, leaned forward just enough to make Tara flinch, and said, I'm here to train, not to make you feel better about yourself. Tara froze, her cheeks going red. Whatever, she muttered, turning away. Weirdo. The navigation drill was a different kind of hell. Cadets had to cross a forested ridge, map in hand, strict time limit, no room for error. Olivia moved alone, her compass steady, her steps quiet against the pine needles underfoot. A group of 4 cadets led by a wiry, loud guy named Kyle spotted her checking her map under a tree and immediately circled in. Hey, Dora the Explorer, Kyle called, his voice cutting through the quiet. You lost already? Or just out here picking flowers? His group laughed, tightening the circle. Olivia folded her map with deliberate fingers and kept walking. Kyle jogged forward and snatched it from her hands. Let's see how you do without this, he said, and tore it clean in half, tossing the pieces into the wind. The others cheered as the scraps fluttered away. Olivia stopped. She watched the pieces go. Then she looked at Kyle, her face blank, and said quietly, Hope you know your way back. She turned and kept walking. Same pace, same direction. Kyle's laughter faltered behind her, but his group kept jeering, their voices echoing through the trees long after she was gone. The rifle disassembly drill that afternoon was a wake-up call for everyone watching. Cadets had 2 minutes to strip an M4 carbine, clean it, and reassemble it. Most struggled, fingers fumbling with pins, quiet curses as parts slipped. Lance finished in a sloppy 1:43, grinning like he'd just won something. Tara scraped by at 1:59, her hands shaking as she snapped the last piece into place. Then Olivia stepped up. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. Her hands moved like they were following a script she'd written herself. Pin out, bolt free. Every part laid out in a perfect grid on the table. Then back together again. 52 seconds. Not a single mistake. Sergeant Polk stared at the timer. Then at her. Mitchell, he said, his voice dropping low. Where'd you learn to do that? Olivia wiped her hands on her pants and stepped back. Practice, she said, eyes on the ground. A lieutenant nearby leaned toward Polk and muttered. Her hands didn't shake once. That special force is steady. Lance overheard and scoffed. So she can clean a gun. Doesn't mean she can fight. But during the break that followed, a quiet cadet named Elena, who had been watching Olivia carefully since the first day, slipped her a spare map from her own kit without a word. Just a small nod. Olivia took it, tucked it away, and nodded once back. It was the first small kindness anyone had shown her. Whispers started after that. A few cadets began glancing at Olivia during breaks, trying quietly to piece her together. She didn't seem to notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. She sat on the grass, retying her laces, her face as unreadable as ever. Tara leaned toward Lance, her voice low but sharp. Bet she's got some sad backstory. Poor girl from nowhere, trying to prove she's somebody. Lance laughed. Yeah, she's proven she's a nobody. Olivia's fingers paused on her laces, just for a moment. Then she kept tying slow and steady like she was sealing something shut inside herself. In the equipment shed, the quartermaster, a gruff older man named Gibbs, handed out vests and helmets with a permanent scowl. When Olivia stepped up, he looked her over with barely disguised disdain. What's this, a hobo convention? He said, loud enough for the whole line. We don't have gear for civilians, sweetheart. He tossed her a vest 2 sizes too big, the straps dangling uselessly. The cadets behind her snickered. Maybe use it as a tent, someone called. Olivia caught the vest without a word. She didn't argue, didn't ask for a replacement. She just walked outside, and in under 2 minutes, adjusted the vest using a few quick knots until it fit perfectly, her hands moving with the same precision she'd shown on the rifle. Gibbs laughed to the room as she left. That one's washing out by tomorrow. He was wrong. The terrain run the next morning was brutal. 10 miles over rough ground, full gear, no mercy. Olivia held steady in the middle of the pack, her breathing even and controlled. Tara was right behind her the entire time, muttering under her breath. Pick it up, charity case. You're dragging us all down. At the halfway mark, Tara nudged Olivia's elbow. Just enough. Olivia's foot caught a rock and she veered off the path, her ankle twisting as she hit the ground. Captain Harrow saw it from a distance and didn't see what caused it. Mitchell! He roared. Broke formation. Squad loses points. The group groaned. Lance turned, his face flushed. Nice one, Mitchell. Real team player. Olivia didn't argue. She got back in line, jaw tight, and kept running, her limp barely noticeable but very real. When the run ended, Harrow pointed at her. 5 extra laps. Move! The others watched as she started running again, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She finished with her face slick with sweat, hands on her knees. No one offered her water. Tara tossed an empty bottle at her feet. Hydrate with air, she said, laughing. Olivia picked up the bottle, crushed it quietly in her fist, and dropped it in the trash. Then she walked away without a sound. During a night drill, cadets were tasked with setting up a perimeter under simulated enemy fire. Flares lit the sky, and instructors shouted orders, creating controlled chaos. Olivia worked alone, securing a rope barrier with steady, methodical hands. A cadet named Marcus, stocky and always looking for an audience, decided she was an easy target. He grabbed her rope and yanked it into the mud. Oops, he grinned. Guess you're just not cut out for this, huh? The nearby cadets laughed, their flashlights bobbing. Olivia knelt, picked up the rope and started over. Marcus wasn't done. He kicked dirt onto her hands, coating the rope in grime. Keep trying, princess. Maybe you'll get it by morning. The group roared. Olivia paused. Her hand went still. Then she looked up at him, her voice quiet but sharp as glass. You done? Marcus blinked, caught off guard. He laughed it off, but something in her eyes made him step back. She went back to work, and the rope was clean again within seconds. Later, when the drill ended, Marcus's own barrier was found loose, costing his squad critical points. No one saw Olivia near it, but Elena, watching from the sidelines, hid a small smile. That night, in the barracks, Olivia sat on her bunk and pulled an old photograph from her bag. It was creased, the edges soft with age, showing a younger version of her standing next to a man in a black jacket. His face was blurred, but his posture told everything. Shoulders back, eyes forward, carrying the kind of weight that doesn't come from a desk job. She traced her finger along the edge of the photo, her lips pressed together. Then she tucked it away when she heard footsteps. Lance walked by, tossing his towel over his shoulder. Better sleep tight, Mitchell. Tomorrow's shooting. Try not to choke. She didn't look at him. She lay back, hands behind her head, staring at the ceiling, her breathing slow and even long after the barracks went dark. The long-range shooting exam was a make-or-break moment for every cadet. 5 shots, 400 meters, 5 bullseyes, or you're out. The cadets lined up tight with nerves, fiddling with scopes, whispering anxiously about wind speed. Tara went first and missed 2 shots, stepping back pale and shaken. Lance hit 4, cursing quietly as he stepped away. Then Olivia walked up. Tara whispered to the girl beside her, "Bet she can't even hold it straight." Olivia settled into position. Her breathing slowed. The world narrowed. 5 shots, 5 perfect hits, dead center. No hesitation. No scope adjustments. Nothing wasted. The range officer blinked at the target. Mitchell. Perfect score. A colonel watching from a distance, an older man with gray hair and a chest full of medals, leaned forward. Who trained her? He murmured to his aide. That's a Spec Ops trigger pull. Lance overheard and rolled his eyes. Fluky. Let's see her in actual combat. But what no one mentioned until the equipment check, was that Olivia's rifle had a misaligned sight. A defect nobody else had even caught. She'd hit every shot anyway, compensating for it automatically, perfectly. The range officer shook his head when he saw it. That's not luck, he muttered. That's pure skill. In the mess hall the next day, Olivia's tray was empty. She'd been last in line and the food had run out. She sat anyway, sipping water, her face composed and still. A girl named Jenna, tall, smug, with a laugh that filled whatever room she was in, spotted her and walked over, dropping a half-eaten apple onto the empty tray. Here, Jenna said, her voice thick with fake pity. Can't have you starving, right? You need strength to, what, carry our bags? The table behind her burst into laughter. Olivia looked at the apple, then at Jenna. Thanks, she said, and picked it up and took a slow, deliberate bite. Jenna's smile faltered. She'd expected a reaction, not this. The group kept laughing, but it was hollow now, searching for something that wasn't there. Olivia finished the apple, core and all, set the tray aside and stood. As she brushed past Jenna, her shoulder grazed her just enough to make Jenna step back. The room went quiet for a moment, watching her go. The combat simulation was the real test. 1-on-1, hand-to-hand, no weapons. Olivia was paired against Lance, who towered over her, fists clenched, grin already spreading like he'd already won. Before the whistle even blew, he charged, grabbing her collar, slamming her hard against the wall. The fabric of her shirt tore. ripping clean from her shoulder down to her lower back. The squad burst into laughter. "She's inked up." Tara jeered. "What is this, a biker gang?" The full tattoo was exposed now, a coiled black viper wrapped around a shattered skull, faded but fierce across her scapula. Lance leaned in, his face inches from hers. "This isn't daycare, Mitchell. It's a battlefield. Do yourself a favor and go home." Olivia's eyes didn't move. Steady, unblinking. "Let go," she said, low, quiet, and absolutely certain. Lance laughed, but his grip loosened. Just for a second, she stepped back, turned, and as the torn shirt fell lower, the full tattoo was visible to the entire yard. The laughter died. The colonel, the one who'd been watching from the edge of the yard all morning, stepped forward. His boots crunched on the gravel. His face had gone pale. "Who gave you the right to wear that mark?" His voice was shaking. Olivia stood straight, the tattoo stark against her skin, the torn shirt hanging loose at her side. "I didn't ask for it," she said quietly. "It was given to me by Ghost Viper himself. I trained under him for 6 years." The colonel went very still. Then slowly his spine straightened, and his hand snapped to his forehead in a full, formal salute. Every officer nearby stared, their mouths open, their certainties gone. Lance stumbled backward, the color draining from his face. An aide leaned toward the colonel and whispered, barely audible, "No one carries that tattoo unless they were his final student." Tara's smirk vanished. She looked away, her hands trembling at her sides. Ghost Viper. The name itself was a ghost, a whisper attached to a unit that had been erased from official records 5 years ago. No one talked about it openly, but the stories never died. Missions that never officially happened. Operatives who disappeared without explanation. A leader who trained only a handful of people in his lifetime. Each one marked with that tattoo. Olivia didn't look at the colonel. She didn't look at anyone. She pulled the torn shirt back over her shoulder and walked to the edge of the yard, her steps slow and deliberate. The silence followed her like a weight. Lance couldn't let it go. Pride wouldn't allow it. He stood in the middle of the yard, fists clenched, voice rising. So what if she has a tattoo? Prove it in a real fight. Right now. The cadets looked at each other, uncertain. Olivia stopped walking. She turned slowly, her eyes cold and clear. "If that's what you want." She didn't fix her shirt, just stood there, calm, unmoving, the tattoo still visible. Lance charged again, swinging hard, his fists aimed at her face. Olivia moved around every punch like water, fluid and effortless. He yelled at her to fight back. She didn't. She let him tire himself out, let his swings get wider and sloppier, let his breath go ragged and desperate. Then, in one single clean motion, she stepped in close. One arm around his neck, a precise twist, a controlled pull. 8 seconds. Lance was unconscious on the ground, his body limp, his pride gone. No one spoke. Captain Harrow walked over, his face unreadable. He looked at Lance on the ground, then at Olivia standing above him, then at the group staring back at him. "Effective immediately," he said, his voice low and absolute. "Olivia Mitchell is appointed honorary instructor. You will learn from her." Olivia didn't nod, didn't smile. She picked up her backpack, pulled the torn shirt closed, and walked off the yard. The cadets parted to let her through, every single one of them, their eyes down, their laughter gone. During a strategy briefing the following morning, Olivia sat in the back of the room, notebook open, pen moving quickly. The instructor, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Major Klein, was explaining defensive formations when she noticed Olivia writing and decided to make an example of her. "Mitchell," she said, her tone pointed. "You got something to add back there, or are you just doodling?" The room turned, expecting her to shrink. Olivia looked up, pen still. "Your left flank is exposed. The way that formation is structured, you'd lose half your unit in an ambush before anyone realized what was happening." Klein went quiet. She glanced at the diagram on the board, then back at Olivia. "Explain." Olivia stood, walked to the board, and drew a quick adjustment. Precise, confident lines. "Shift your scouts here," she said. "It cuts their angle of attack and gives your unit time to respond." The room was completely still. Klein studied the adjustment, then nodded slowly. "Noted. Sit down." As Olivia returned to her seat, Tara whispered, "Teacher's pet." Klein heard it. "Quiet, cadet," she said, her voice flat and final. "She just saved your hypothetical lives." Tara's face burned, and the room shifted, eyes moving toward Olivia with something new and unfamiliar. Not mockery, not suspicion, something closer to respect. The live fire exercise came next. Olivia was assigned to lead a small team through a mock urban assault, a group that included, by design or bad luck, Tara. As the team moved through the course, Tara ignored Olivia's signals completely. She rushed ahead, trigger-happy and reckless, and hit a tripwire that set off a deafening siren. The exercise halted. Harrow stormed over, his face tight with anger. "Mitchell, your team's a mess." Tara smirked and leaned toward Derek. "Told you she's useless." Olivia stood steady. Tara broke formation. I signaled her to wait. Harrow turned to Tara, who shrugged. "Didn't see it." The group snickered, ready to pin the whole thing on Olivia. She didn't argue. Just nodded. "Understood, sir." But when they reset, the overhead drone had been recording. The replay showed Tara ignoring the signal. Perfectly clear, completely undeniable. Harrow watched the footage without a word, his jaw tight. He docked Tara's squad points without comment. The laughter died. Tara went pale, and the group that had been ready to pile onto Olivia suddenly had nowhere to look. The camp changed after that. Olivia stood at the front of the yard on a gray morning. Backpack over one shoulder, plain black shirt replacing the torn one. She didn't bark orders. She didn't raise her voice. She simply showed them. Rifle drills, combat stances, movements that looked effortless but carried years of precision inside every motion. The cadets watched. Some took notes, others just stared. Tara sat in the back, arms crossed, face pale, very quiet. Lance wasn't there. Word was he'd been sent to medical, then quietly reassigned to a desk position at a base in the middle of nowhere. Nobody talked about it directly, but everyone understood. In a first aid drill, Olivia was paired with Derek. They had a simulated casualty to treat under time pressure. Derek, still nursing his bruised ego from the mess hall, shoved Olivia aside as she reached for the kit. "I got this," he announced loudly. "You'd probably just make it worse." He fumbled the bandages, wrapping them too loose, the dummy's fake wounds still bleeding through the dressing. The medic instructor, a quiet, precise man named Carter, shook his head. "You're losing him, cadet." Derek's face went red. "She distracted me," he snapped, pointing at Olivia. Olivia stepped forward without a word. She redid the bandages in under 30 seconds. Tight, correct, textbook perfect. Carter nodded. "That's how it's done." Derek stormed off, muttering. But the laughter that followed him was quieter this time, more uncertain than cruel. Later, Carter pulled Olivia aside and handed her a medic patch. "You've earned this," he said simply. She took it, face blank, and slipped it into her bag. A week later, during a break between drills, a young officer approached her. He was nervous, clutching a clipboard like it could protect him. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low, "there's someone here for you." Olivia followed him to the camp's entrance where a man stood waiting. He was tall, broad-shouldered, short-cropped hair, a face that gave absolutely nothing away. He wore a black jacket and jeans, no uniform, but the guards on either side had stepped back the moment he arrived. The colonel was already there, hands clasped behind his back. He looked at the man and said simply, "General." The man didn't respond to the title. He looked at Olivia, and for just a moment, barely a flicker, something in his eyes softened. She walked up to him and stopped a few feet away. "You didn't have to come," she said. He tilted his head, almost smiling. "Yeah," he said. "I did." The cadets watching from a distance went completely still. Tara, standing nearby, dropped her water bottle. The plastic clattered against the ground, loud in the silence. The colonel cleared his throat and addressed the watching group. "This is General Thomas Reed," he said. "Olivia's husband." The words landed like a shockwave. Reed didn't say anything else. He put a hand on Olivia's shoulder, and together they walked toward the battered pickup she'd arrived in. The engine roared to life. The truck pulled away, kicking up dust behind it. No one moved until it was gone. The camp's top brass met for a final review of cadet progress. When Olivia's name came up, the room went quiet. A junior officer, unfamiliar with her history, suggested cutting her for insufficient leadership. The colonel, the same man who had saluted her in the yard, leaned forward. "Mitchell's file is classified," he said, his voice controlled but firm. "But I will tell you this. She is the only person in this camp who could have run it blindfolded." He reached into his briefcase and placed a sealed envelope on the table. Stamped in black ink, a coiled viper emblem. Her evaluation from Ghost Viper himself. "Read it. Then tell me who's lacking." The junior officer opened it with slightly trembling hands. The room watched him read, watched his eyes widen line by line, watched the color drain slowly from his face. Olivia wasn't there. She didn't need to be. Her truth was already rewriting the story for them. The consequences came quickly after that. Tara's sponsorship with a defense contractor evaporated after a video of her mocking Olivia circulated and spread. Olivia hadn't posted it, just a cadet with a phone and a conscience. Tara left the camp a week later, her head down, her bags packed quietly at dawn. Lance's reassignment turned into a full discharge after his name came up in an internal conduct review. His family name, once respected, became a cautionary tale whispered in military circles. The others who had left, who had tossed empty bottles, who had circled her in the dark, they didn't face formal consequences, but they carried something heavier. Shame, the kind that lingers quietly. The kind that makes you stop mid-laugh and go still. Olivia didn't return to the camp. Her name stayed on the instructor roster, but she never taught another session. Some said she and Reed had gone somewhere classified, running a training program no official would confirm. Others said she had simply vanished, the way Ghost Viper always had. But the cadets who had watched her move, who had felt the full weight of her silence, who had seen a colonel's hand snap to his forehead, they didn't forget. They passed her story down the way real stories travel. Quietly, person to person, growing truer with every telling. Not a legend, not a myth, just the truth of a woman who never once needed to raise her voice to be heard. Years before any of this, Olivia had been different. Not softer, but younger. Her edges less defined, her certainty still forming. She had trained in a compound that existed in no official record, under a man whose name was spoken only when absolutely necessary. He had chosen her, not because of her family's money, not because of her background, but because of her quiet. Because she listened in a way most people never learned to. Because she moved with purpose even when she wasn't sure of the destination. 6 years. 6 years of his methods. The rifle, the choke, the particular way of standing so still that a room full of people eventually couldn't look anywhere else. He had given her the tattoo himself. She remembered the needle, the silence between them, the way he had said without ceremony, "This isn't a badge, it's a promise." She had nodded, jaw tight, and she had kept that promise. Through every mud-soaked drill, every empty laugh, every tray of mashed potatoes thrown across a table. Back at the camp, in the days after her departure, the air felt different, heavier, cleaner somehow. The cadets trained harder, though no one could quite explain why. During a night drill, one of the younger recruits, a quiet kid named Sam, found Olivia's old photograph tucked under a bunk in the barracks. He held it up in the dim light, squinting at the blurred figure in the black jacket. Who was she really? He asked the group. Nobody answered. Tara, still there but quieter now, occupying less space, looked at the floor. Sam slipped the photograph into his pocket. He wasn't sure why it felt important. But it did. Olivia's story kept traveling. It reached people who had never set foot in a military camp. People who had spent their whole lives being told they didn't belong, being talked over and looked past and handed the wrong-sized vest. They heard about the woman who had walked into a yard full of contempt and walked out with a salute. They understood her silence in a way the laughing cadets never had. Her stillness, her refusal to shrink even when shrinking would have been so much easier. Her story was theirs too. In the end, it wasn't about the tattoo. It wasn't about the rifle score or the 8-second choke or the photograph of a man in a black jacket. It was about the way Olivia carried everything, her past, her pain, her power, without ever putting it down, without ever asking anyone to carry it with her. She didn't need to prove herself. She never had. The world just needed time to catch up. And for every person who had ever been pushed to the edge of a table, handed the wrong equipment and told to be grateful, her story was a quiet, unshakable promise. Your time is coming. Hold your ground. You are enough.